Hello, hello, hello. I thought I would do what's almost a little game for myself, which is Steve Dngh is my VCR for BroTube, which is to say he watches BroTube videos, which is his term for um, young men, usually young men who are sort of selling self-improvement to other young men. And I'm not a young man myself, but I totally can think about being like in my 20s and being hungry to kind of learn and to kind of figure out, try to try to struggle with my my mediocrity and be self-improve and being hungry for knowledge, hungry of like I know so little, and at that point, having a lot of energy and a lot of time to devote to trying to do self-improvement. So it comes from a good place. Now he likes to kind of keep a watch on the guys who are weaponizing this kind of this hunger, who are selling, who are the snake oil salesmen in this thing, and this is what he calls the bro tubers. Um, which often the case is a bro tuber will come out with a video, and Steve will kind of take it apart, which he'll say like, okay, here are the parts okay, these are the germs of like common sense. Here are the germs of like good ideas, and then there'll be a certain point where he'll go, and this is where they're the snake oil salesman and they're trying to sell you stuff. And so whenever he releases a video like that, I immediately stop it before he starts, and I go and watch the video in question. And this one is a video by an Andrew Krby, and it's How I Speed Read, which I think it's like how I read 1,000 books in 2020, and it's an unlinked video by this point, which maybe shows you exactly how successful it was for Andrew Krby. But I just wanted to kind of talk about it before I go and watch Steve talk about it, because I'm pretty sure it's step number 3 is where he's like, because it's a 5-step program with a call to action at the end, because there's always a call to action, which is sales speech for, and this is where I get the suckers to pay me to do stuff. Suckers, or the people I am shilling to. It's a shill. So Andrew Krby's, yeah, this is a young man, with a stack of books beside him, talking about like, yeah, these are my steps to being an efficient reader. And the first thing he says is, "Oh, actually, I didn't read 1,000 books in 2020. That's the first thing. I didn't. The whole thing is to read smarter, and not to read old-fashionedly. But we'll get into that. But he starts off with, you've got to bait your hook in these videos with the sensible stuff to begin with, which is like, okay." He makes the case of like, well, why should you read? And, he says like, it's this thing of you get wisdom from books. And while reading itself looks like it's a activity which you do, which doesn't have immediate payback, it has long-term gratification. And that the long-term payoff to it is that you gain wisdom, and the wisdom improves your knowledge, and that suddenly you level up in the video game of life. Him pointing to lots of successful people who take time out of their busy lives to read every day, and I think quotes from like the original snake oil salesman, in a way, Benjamin Franklin, saying like, wisdom is the greatest investment you can make in yourself, and that through reading. So he starts off with, this is the smart move to do, is to read will pay off big for you. It may look like you're just sitting on your ass doing nothing, but it's actually something that will pay you dividends, and you will gain knowledge. You are getting knowledge from people, a lifetime of somebody's knowledge, in just a couple of hours of reading, which we can come back to later. How I feel about that as an older dude now. um, but so yeah, that's like step number one. Step number two is that you shouldn't actually force yourself to read stuff you don't like. He says it's like, forcing yourself to read stuff you hate is like giving yourself a learning disability, because you're going to dislike it. You're not going to have good retention. You're going to have an incredible hard time of actually forming a habit, because you're doing something you hate. You have to find stuff that you want to read. And he says one of the good ways to do that is to, I think he calls it, he's got some kind of a bullshit name for it, but basically you should read about stuff that you're curious about. And you should make lists of like, oh, I'm curious about this. And as you're reading, you'll find other things in that you're curious about. And then you can read about that. And you will build up an entire subject list, an entire kind of learning tree for yourself of subjects and things, and you'll want to read. It won't be like, oh, I have to read for half an hour a day. It's like, oh, I only have a half an hour I can read, or maybe I can get a little bit more time in. You'll build up an enthusiasm, and you'll build up a habit that way quite effortlessly. Now, so far, so good. But then we get into the next step, which is, I'm quite sure, is where Steve will kind of go, ugh, which is, you shouldn't read old-fashionedly. Old-fashioned reading is when you actually read the entire book. He says most books today are like blog posts. That's what they started off at blog posts, and that's what they should have stayed as. And really, all you need to do is probably read the first chapter of a book, or better yet, trace it back to its blog post and just read that, and not read the rest of the book. It's like once you've sucked out the idea of the book, just stop reading it. And if you're reading a book and it's starting to bore you, well, then just drop it and put it aside, because that goes back to his thing of like, only read what you're curious in, and if it's no longer fulfilling that, you should toss it. But yes, this is and he is definitely, this is a bunch of you get these young guys reading self-help books. Yes, most self-help books probably are blog posts, and are things that you can probably boil down to a 10 item list, and that's the entire book. My argument would be, of course, for that is, well, then you're reading the wrong books if they should just be blog posts. So yeah, and then I think we go into step number 4 is like, well, also, really, if you find books that, like, you want to do deep learning with, well, what you should do is you should read them, and you should listen to the audiobook of them at the same time at 2 or 3 times speed. And oh yes, your comprehension will go way down, but that'll get more than made up for in the amount of time you will save. Listening to a chipmunk squirrel away at in your ear as you're desperately going along at full speed in the book with absolutely no chance of reflection, which is just like, oh my god, oh my god. We're in heavy snake oil mode here, and his thing is like, oh, and also, really, it's not about reading; it's about the ideas. It's not about the actual enjoyment of reading books that is the thing. This is all about information gathering to make you into an Adonis, into a god. This is all about self-serving for you. So the next thing you should be doing is, it's like, why are you even reading? You should be listening to the TED Talk. You should be listening to the podcast where the author is simply going to be giving you the bullet points on their book, and you won't need to do any more. Or you can go to something like Blinkist. Oh, and he loves Blinkist because Blinkist will give you reader summaries of the books. And instead of just getting one viewpoint of the book, you can read various different summaries of the book, so you can get different multiple views, which will give you a deeper sense of the book because you're getting people's different ideas, which is in some ways is a weird, twisted funhouse mirror of something like BookTube, where you do get the joy of when you actually read a book all the way through and you think about it and you wrestle with it and you spend time with it, and then you talk about it and you talk about it with other people, and people have different opinions. But that's not really what he's saying. He's saying like, no, you're just listening to these little summaries, and then you compare it with other little summaries and you come up with your own summary of the summaries, and you haven't even read the book. Oh my God. Oh my God. So I'm awaiting for Steve's, I think it's half an hour diatribe on this guy. Now, what I would like to say is, I don't quite is that this video is isn't it's just got a link. It's a linked video. It doesn't actually show up on his video list as a public video. It's a video that's hidden. So you'd actually, to get to, the only way I got to it was through Steve's video has a link to that video below of him on doing this kind of little rant on BroTube stuff. So I don't even know if it comes up in a search item. Now the thing is, and I looked at the video, and the video has got a whole bunch of comments of people mocking him for claiming of speed reading 1,000 books. It's like, yes, I 998 books. I read summaries of, and 2 books I read, and a lot of and half it's half likes, half dislikes. A lot of people have seen it, but it's not gotten what you would call positive engagement. So he's unlinked the video. So he's obviously, Andrew Krby has just already buried this video as like, oh, that snake oil sales pitch did not resonate, did not work. What's interesting is he has a video from about a month earlier, which is basically the exact same video, but he doesn't make the claim that he sped read 1,000 books in 2020, but it has basically the exact same points in it of like, here's some valuable tips you should do before you start reading. But yes, so it's a little insight there of just like, the snake oil salesman going, oh, that pitch didn't work. Okay, I'll just hide that, and I'll probably in a while he'll just come up with another video that pushes out the same points yet again to get his sales pitch going. So yeah, that's my review of How I Speed Read by Andrew Krby. And now I will go off and listen to Steve Donoghue's review of the book and see what he has to say about it. And just, that, this is a guy who is obviously, he's got a market. He's looking for probably young dudes who are hungry to learn the secret of life and the secrets of learning and the secrets of how to become a great man. And I mean, I can, I am an old man. I am over 50 now. So I understand, and I know I'm not old, but, I'm a middle-aged dude. But one of the other concepts here that I just would like to, I would just want to note is this idea that it's just this concept that you can read a book and just suck up somebody else's lifetime of experience and lessons and incorporate it into yourself, and thus become an even greater person just by the act of reading a book, which I love reading. I think reading is a beautiful thing that hopefully does develop me, but it's a slow incremental thing. And to be honest, living experience is the thing that will probably be the thing that actually brings wisdom into your life. And that is through failure, that is through pain, that is through taking chances, that is through joys, but it's probably not through reading. I wouldn't give reading that kind of primacy, and reading isn't that one to one. I will input this book into myself, and I will thus become this much greater. That's not how it works, and it doesn't affect me. Going out and something happening to me is far more powerful of a thing than I'm sitting at home reading a book. I wouldn't give up reading books. I love reading books. It's a beautiful part of my life, but it doesn't have that power. Yeah. So that's kind of this caveat to a snake oil salesman who's trying to sell you the secrets to the universe. It's like, the secret to the universe is you're going to have to live, you're going to have to struggle, you're going to have to make stupid mistakes. And, people will try and help you. People will try and give you advice. And if you're not ready for that advice, you won't hear it. Unfortunately, the sad truth is you probably won't hear it. And if you're lucky, you'll live through it, and you'll look back and you'll go, if I could have only heard that at the time. And that maybe you can incorporate that into yourself, that hopefully the next time someone says, hey, you should listen to this, maybe you will listen. Maybe the next time you will. But it's still only a 50-50, I guess. All right. I'm probably freezing my doodle's little butt off down here, so I'm going off to bed. More videos later.